love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union. Hello comrades and welcome back to the Ushanka Show. Today we're gonna talk about moonshining in Soviet Union and how I participated in that business. But first of all, I would like to say a special thanks to Craig from Wisconsin, who is my very first subscriber using Patreon service and helping to develop this channel. As you may aware or maybe not, YouTube drastically changed their advertising policies and a lot of YouTubers noticed their income dropping quite drastically. And for example, my last video I made about World War II and my grandfather, since I used the words war and POW, YouTube refused to monetize my video, which means it's basically not going to produce any money whatsoever. So if you would like to support this channel, you can do it using patreon.com/Sputnikov, and I'll put the link below this video. Before I start telling you a story about moonshining in Soviet Union and my moonshining, I would like to teach you a new Russian word, and this word is samogon. It's translated as moonshine, but direct translation is a little bit different. Moonshining is because, as far as I know, since people are making illegal alcohol while moon was shining, that's my understanding why it's called moonshine. Samogon means like self-made, pretty much. So samogon is moonshining on Russian. When I was preparing for this video, I was kind of surprised to discover that Soviet Union was actually 1 year ahead of United States to introduce prohibition. According to Wikipedia, prohibition in the United States remained in place from 1920 to 1933, and that's nationwide constitutional ban on production, importation, transportation, and self-alcoholic beverages. In USSR, Comrade Lenin, Vladimir Lenin, signed the law, they call it Decret, in 1919, 1 year earlier, and that law was in place till 1923, when was introduced a state monopoly for production and sales of alcohol. A year later, in 1924, the new law was introduced where for moonshining you could get up to 5 years in jail with all your belongings being confiscated. And if to compare, for murder, that time in Soviet Union, max term was 10 years. So that's pretty strict law for moonshining. Also, there was introduced a system of bonuses for cops, which were used to be called militia, milizioneri. So for every discovered moonshining device, they would get a special bonus. So in 1923, they discovered around 115,000 moonshining devices. 1924, another 135,000. After the World War II, in 1948, Soviet Union made its laws way stricter against moonshining, and it was a criminal offense that you can get from 2 to 7 years of labor camp. In the same year, 1948, around 52,000 people got arrested. In 1949, 41,000. In 1953, 21,000. So a lot of people got arrested and sent to labor camps, gulags, for moonshining. Only after the death of Joseph Stalin, that trend kind of started slowing down. But then again, the new war against moonshining started in 1958 by Nikita Khrushchev. Even though he was a big, I would say, lover of alcohol, he liked to drink, but he was fighting hard against moonshining. In one of my previous videos, I was talking already about vodka in Soviet Union, and for people in the cities, it was kind of expensive. In 80s, a bottle of vodka was around $3. I mean, 3 rubles. So that's why 3 people could split it easily. Everyone will chip in a ruble, and then you have plenty of alcohol to get drunk, but not too drunk, so you can make it home. But for peasants, for kolkhoznik in the villages, it was expensive. So moonshining was mostly going on in the countryside, and that's where the story of my grandpa starts. As I mentioned in my previous videos, I spent every summer in the village with my grandparents. So my parents will take me in the beginning of June, and I'll stay there all through the summer till beginning of September. And my parents will come maybe in July or August for a month because they had a vacation, paid vacation for 30 days. It was quite a generous vacation to have in Soviet Union. Everyone had it, 30 paid days, but of course pay was pretty pathetic. But you can take a nice break for 30 days. So when I got a little bit older, maybe 7, 8 years old, I started doing several chores for my grandfather. For example, I would be picking Colorado potato bugs, which we had a lot of those, destroying our potato fields. So my grandpa will pay me 10 kopecks for a mayonnaise jar full of Colorado potatoes bugs. So that was my way of making a little money and help my grandparents. So in the morning I'll grab an empty glass jar, go in the garden, and start picking these bugs, pick it full, show grandpa, and he'll pay me $10, and then I'll take a hammer and smash them, all those bugs, and then go back in the garden. Another chore I was doing, I was helping my grandpa to cut firewood. Their log cabin, which all the people pretty much lived in the log cabins, has like usually 2 rooms, and it was heated by wood burning stove, big brick wood burning stove inside of the house. So pretty much all summer project would be to cut firewood by hand, and then when my dad shows up for vacation, one of his projects, his chores, would be chopping the firewood. And so we had this long 2-handle saw, hand saw. So I'll be on one end helping grandpa. I mean, I was a little kid, but at least I could help a little bit and keep the saw straight. So we'll be cutting that wood and stacking it up, and so my dad can chop it later. But sometimes I'll get very excited when I notice that grandpa will start cutting firewood in way smaller pieces. So usually it was the standard length, which would go into wood burning stove. But if my grandpa decides it's time to make some moonshine, he will make it way shorter, because the little burjuika, so-called little metal wood burning stove that been used for moonshining, you couldn't fit the big logs, so he would start cutting smaller ones, and I'll be getting excited because I knew we have another moonshine project coming up. Now my grandparents, they use dried fruits like dried apples and pears to make a mash. People used all kind of different things. They used sugar beets. Some people used potatoes. In Poland, I know potato vodka was very popular. Sugar beets made kind of nasty. Samogon, it was really like almost blue color. So as I said, apples. Some people use candy. Then, for example, if you had jams and jelly that got spoiled, instead of throw them away, you can create mash and make vodka of it. But my grandpa was using dry fruits. And I remember our neighbor, we had a single lady in her 60s who was a horrible alcoholic, and she was also making her own moonshine, but she never could make it to the end, because while mash is getting ready, and it's getting like light alcoholic, she won't be able to wait, and she will start slurping that mash and getting drunk on it. And sometimes she'll be so desperate to get drunk, so she will try to sneak to the other people's barns, trying to find their mash and eat it up to get drunk. So my grandpa was always keeping an eye on her, make sure she won't mess with our mash. And of course, as I mentioned, making samogon, making moonshine was illegal. So, you know, for a little kid, it was kind of exciting, kind of this dangerous thing that I'm doing. And we had only one police officer in the village, and it was like part-time because there was no crime going on in the village at all. So it was a low-risk activity, but still, somebody can report on you. So when the day comes, we'll be moonshining inside of the barn, and my job will be watching the temperature, because you know you have this big container with mash, and then you have a copper pipe that spirals and goes through another bucket that's full of water. And my job was to feel with my finger the temperature of the water and keep it cold so condensation will be going. So I'll have a couple of buckets with cold water from the well, and I'll be taking out some warm water and adding cold water to get condensation going. And it was almost like a magic, you know, you get the things going, get the water set up, get the fire going, and suddenly there'll be alcohol start dripping, moonshine start dripping from the tip of the copper line. And my grandpa will always make this cool test. He will take a little teaspoon, fill it up with this fresh first run moonshine, and then he will lit the match and set the moonshine on fire, and it will get this cool blue flame burning, and he will look at me and says, yeah, this is a good stuff. So the first run, so-called первак, which means like the first, there'll be the strongest, of course, alcohol, and then while you moonshining, will be getting weaker and weaker. And we'll get usually maybe several gallons of vodka, of samogon, which my grandpa then will be slowly drinking. He wasn't drinking much at all, but he always would have a little shot of his moonshine before every meal. So in the morning, he have a little shot like 15 grams, then at lunch, then at dinner. Also in our village, we had this little area, it was like a separate street they call hutar, which kind of was famous that everyone was moonshining there, and there's a lot of people who lived there were the hardcore drunks. So that place always had trouble with fires, because people will be moonshining and drinking moonshine while they're making it and getting wasted and falling asleep, and then place will catch fire. So they had fires quite often in that area. It was famous for burning places down by drunk moonshiners. Now, for people who were moonshining in the cities, the whole process was quite easier, because you had to run in cold water, so you didn't need to constantly drain hot water, add cold water. You just turn the cold water on, and we're constantly running through the condenser and condensing the alcohol, and you didn't need the firewood because you just set up the whole system on the top of your gas stove. And I remember only once my grandparents were moonshining in our apartment. I don't remember why they decided to do it, because in Kiev, I mean, making 130, 150 rubles a month and paying 3 rubles for a bottle of vodka, which is half liter, wasn't too bad. So this is my story about the moonshining in Soviet Union. I was part of it, and it was actually a really cool thing to do. And as I said, it's really awesome thing. I still remember that blue flame of that first round of the moonshine of samogon, and how cool it was. And actually, I forgot to mention, when I was maybe, I don't know, 5 years old, when I was in the village, of course, I had a horrible tooth pain. It just was horrible toothache. And my grandma, she didn't have any pills, and we didn't have, of course, dentists in that village. So in order to help me out, it was late night, and I was tired and sleepy. she gave me a little tablespoon of samogon and told me just to flush your mouth to kill that whatever was bothering me. So I did that, and then I kind of like looking at her, I was like, what do I do now? And she said, well, go ahead and swallow it. So I actually first tried vodka when I was like 5 years old, so that was pretty funny. Well, so that's the end of my story. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, you can like the video, you can share with your friends, and you can support it by signing up on patreon.com. Thank you very much. Goodbye.